Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. In the darkness of the night, when I'm scared to close my eyes, won't you ease my troubled mind? Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. May you guide us on our way, walk beside us, keep us safe. Hear these humble words we pray. Hashkivenu, ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha, in the shadow of your wings. Ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha, in the promise morning brings. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. So much heartache, so much hurt, so many hunger, so many search for your shelter and peace on earth. Hashkivenu, Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being with us tonight. It is important and good to be together when the world seems to make no sense. I want to speak very briefly about darkness and light in two different ways. In times like this, what helps me, and maybe hopefully will help some of us on this Zoom, is to think about moments like this in our country, in our families, in our lives, like an eclipse. During an eclipse, the moon has the power to completely eliminate the light and the warmth and the beauty of the sun. And during that moment, it is tempting to believe that darkness has somehow triumphed over light, because in the moment it has. But we all know that despite the ability of darkness to occasionally destroy light, hide the light, eventually it does recede, and we find ourselves back in the warmth and the light again. I would never say this to comfort the parents of those murdered children. But for the rest of us, I think, and for me, very personally, it is helpful to remember that despite appearances, eclipses, the moon is not more powerful than the sun. Many of you know there's a Jewish blessing for almost every act in nature. The sunrise, sunset, stars in the sky, rainbows, rain, you name it in nature, and Jews have a blessing for it. But despite how amazing and rare an eclipse is, there is actually no blessing for an eclipse. In fact, it's to the contrary. When a person witnesses an eclipse, some people actually fast after witnessing an eclipse. An eclipse is, it's a warning. It's a view of God's displeasure. It is an invitation for introspection and for action. It is not a blessing. It is a warning. And I hope we all heed that warning, this omen, to think about what actions each of us can take to bring more light into the world and to battle this darkness of misanthropy, this darkness of othering, this darkness of violence, and this darkness of looking the other way when surely there were signs along the way. The second light metaphor I'm going to share with everyone is this idea of a valley of shadows in the 23rd Psalm, which we're going to hear chanted, and then we'll all read together in English in a couple of moments. It might surprise you to say that I consider it a metaphor for light, because the verse talks about ki gam elech bege'et salmavet lo irara. Even though, ki gam elech, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. How is this about light when it only talks about shadows? Well, if you think deeply about a shadow, no matter how long, no matter how dark, a shadow is actually not proof of darkness. It's proof of light. You can only have a shadow if the light is shining. It's obstructed. In the metaphor of the psalm, it's obstructed by grief, death, loss. It's a metaphor for all moments of eclipse, darkness, like this. But you cannot have a shadow unless the light is still shining. It is impossible. If there's no light shining, it's complete and total darkness. And that's not what the psalmist teaches us. It's a valley of shadows, which again means the light still shines, however obstructed it might be. And the other important thing in that psalm is that it makes it clear we walk through this valley of shadows. We don't stay in it forever. There is a way back out into the light. And finally, what is that way? Well, that way is different for each of us. And in one particular way, it's similar for all of us, which is relayed in this beautiful Buddhist saying, which is tend the part of the garden you can reach. Each one of us here is the tender of a garden that only we can reach. Our circle of family and friends, our neighborhood, our synagogue. What can we do to love the people within our garden? What can we do to root out hatred in our garden? What can we do to root out the othering of people who are different than us from our garden? What can we do to pay attention to the mental health of every person we love? What can we do to walk through this valley out into the light? And finally, we know what faith really requires of us. Faith requires us to remember that despite this eclipse, despite this evil, that most people are good and most people are kind and violence does not predominate. Yesterday is an eclipse. It is not as powerful as the sun that we all surely can walk back into if we walk through this valley of shadows together. Psalm 23.
Thank God for you, Rabbi Peter.
מזמור דוד, אדוני ראוי לו אכסר, פנהות ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי שובב ינחני ונגל צדק למען שמו. גם כי ילך בקיצור מוות לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Let's all stay on mute, but please read with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
My youngest daughter is 9 years old, and I was sitting with her this afternoon at our little table in the kitchen, and she had written this little paragraph that she was reading to me in all these different voices, and we were laughing and having a wonderful time. And then in the middle of that, I just thought, oh my God, she's the same age as those adorable little babies, just like mine, who died yesterday. And of course, I couldn't show any emotion. I couldn't let her know that I was having that internal moment of just both complete sadness and at the same time, complete gratitude of how lucky I was to be sitting there with her. And yet, in Texas, there were families, and over the course of this year and over the course of so many years, so many people who aren't able to sit at their dining room table with their little baby and laugh. And I was on a Zoom earlier this afternoon with Rabbi Joel Simons. We have a monthly gathering with some teenagers from the synagogue. And one of them said something that was both profound and very disturbing. She said, I was both shocked by what happened yesterday, and at the same time, I wasn't, because it's happened so much. And we talked about this week's Torah portion in that meeting. We talked about how this is the last Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, and it's all about blessings and curses. And the Torah portion begins with a set of blessings. And God is basically saying, you follow my mitzvot, you follow the value system that I put forward in this Torah, and you're going to be blessed. But if you don't, you're going to be cursed. And there are more curses in the Torah portion than there are blessings. And they are brutal, brutal curses. And all I could think about was that yesterday was yet another one of those curses. And what is it going to take for us as a society to move back to being a society more abundantly filled with blessings than curses? Because right now, it can definitely feels like there are more curses than there are blessings. But I think there's a reason why the Torah has the book of Leviticus end with this section. Because at the end of every book of the Torah, there's a phrase that we offer, and I'm trying to focus on that phrase right now. I'm trying to think about in a world where it can feel like there are so many more curses than blessings, how are we supposed to get through that? And I feel like the Torah gives us one answer, which is the phrase that we end every book of the Torah with, which is chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Strength, strength, we will be strengthened. And the idea is that we can look forward to a time, and we can hope for a time, and we can play a role in trying to make sure that we can turn the curses that we see all around us into blessings. And that it's incumbent upon us not to just sit back and say, this is yet another tragedy, but for us to figure out a way that we can do something about it. And at the same time, we have to think about the victims and the victims' families, and we have to send prayers their way, because I don't believe that prayers are empty. I do believe that our prayers have an impact and make a difference. And so we're going to offer a Misha Berach prayer in a minute for the families, for those who were injured, for all of us, for anyone who has been impacted by this. And the truth is, we all have. And what I'd love for you to do, if you feel comfortable with it, we're not going to unmute at all during this, but if you want to offer your own prayer and you want to share it with us as a community, a prayer that you want to articulate in this moment, feel free to use the chat during this Misha Berach prayer to write your own prayer and share it with us, so that all of our prayers, not just those of us who are the clergy who are speaking tonight, but that all of us can send those prayers to all the people who need them. So we're going to continue now with Misha Berach as we hope and pray, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. Strength, strength, may we all be strengthened.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We are sad, we are angry, we are horrified, we are heartbroken, we are frustrated, and we feel so helpless. Today, Hillary Clinton expressed what many of us have been thinking and feeling. Thoughts and prayers are beautiful, but they're not enough. After years of nothing else, we are becoming a nation of anguished screams. We simply need legislators willing to stop the scourge of gun violence in America that is murdering our children. It's time for our leaders to hear our screams, whatever that looks like. As we've mentioned, we have to do something, whether it's writing them, phoning them, contacting them, marching, something, but we cannot remain indifferent. We cannot remain silent anymore. Our hearts and minds cannot fathom what those grief-stricken parents are going through, and we don't want to even imagine their suffering. In their honor and in the memory of those 19 beautiful children, I would like to read you this poem. With what shall I bless her? With what shall this girl be blessed? Asked the angel. And he blessed her with a radiant smile. And he blessed her with big observing eyes to capture all the sights of flowers and birds. And he blessed her with a heart that is sensitive to all signs. What shall this boy be blessed? With what shall this boy be blessed? Asked the angel. And he blessed him with feet to dance to no end, and a soul to absorb all melody, and a hand to gather shells, upon the shore, and an ear that is tuned to young and old. With what shall I bless them? With what shall I bless these children? Asked the angel. And he blessed them with hands that are tender to flowers. And he blessed them with feet to cover all mountains, and with lips to sing the rhythm of the drum. Now the angel says, I have given them all that one can. I gave them a song and a smile and feet to dance, and a sensitive hand and a tender heart. With what, oh, with what shall I bless them still? And their mothers replied, God, oh God, if only you had blessed them with life.
For those who can, rise now for our memorial prayer. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המציעים מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע, כזוהר רקיע, מזהירים לנשמות יקירנו שהלכו לעולמם. בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר Amen.
I happen to be holding my new baby daughter, who's 4 weeks old today, and can only look at her sleeping in my arms and hope and pray that she grows up in a world where she knows nothing of such horrific atrocities. A poem by Marjorie Wentworth. Let us gather and be silent together like stones, glittering in sunlight, so bright it hurts our eyes, emptied of tears and searching the sky for answers. Let us be strangers together as we gather, in circles wherever we meet, to stand hand in hand and sing hymns to the heavens and pray for the fallen and speak their names. They are not alone. As bells in the spires call across the wounded sky, we close our eyes and listen to the same stillness ringing in our hearts, holding on to one another like brothers, like sisters, because we know wherever there is love, there is God.
Each one of them had a name, and behind each name was a smile, and behind each smile was a story, and behind each story was a beautiful world. And those worlds are no more. If you're able to, we invite you to rise as we offer their names and offer words of Kaddish. Alexandria Rubio, Amira Garza, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Eliana Cruz Torres, Ellie Garcia, Eva Morales, Irma Garcia, Jackie Cazares, Halea Nicole Seguero, Jace Levenas, Jose Flores, McKenna Lee Elrod, Matea Rodriguez, Nevea Bravo, Rogelio Torres, Tess Marie Mata, Uzia Garcia, Javier Lopez, Alithia Ramirez. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman karib v'imru amen. Yehesh shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha berechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu be'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen.
In just a moment, we're going to conclude by singing Oseh Shalom. And before that, just a final observation, a final perspective from our tradition, which is that we stood up for Kaddish. The halacha is that Kaddish must be said with at least 10 people present, and it must be said standing, which I believe is the rabbi's way of saying that we will stand up together, we'll hold hands, we'll walk through that valley of shadows together, back into the light we ourselves can bring to the world. And we're going to do that as a temple. We're going to do that together. We're going to keep walking through whatever valley lies before us. We're going to keep making ourselves and each other and the world a better, more light and love-filled place. That is what we stand for when we stand for Kaddish, and that is how we honor the victims. Oseh shalom b'imromav, ya'aseh shalom, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru, amen. Let's sing together.
Oseh shalom, shalom b'imromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'emeru Amen. Ve'al Kol Yisrael,
Thank you all for joining us tonight. May you find strength and find the light. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.